The sickening truth behind the royal bloodlines. If you think modern celebrity scandals are shocking, the historical royal families of Europe would make your stomach turn. The gleaming crowns and regal portraits hide centuries of depravity so disturbing that most history books deliberately omit them. The madness began in the shadows of royal bedchambers, where the desperate pursuit of heirs created a breeding ground for horrors. Royal inbreeding wasn't just common, it was deliberate policy. Charles II of Spain, the final Habsburg ruler, was the culmination of 16 generations of inbreeding, with a family tree where his parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents were all related to each other multiple times over. The results were catastrophic. By age 30, Charles couldn't chew food because his Habsburg jaw was so deformed that his top and bottom teeth couldn't meet. Court records describe him as short, weak, and rather lame, with a tongue so oversized he could barely speak intelligibly. His autopsy revealed something the doctors couldn't believe. He had a heart the size of a peppercorn, lungs corroded through, intestines putrefied, and a single blackened testicle filled with water. His head contained not normal brain matter but a viscous liquid like water. This wasn't just a weak king. This was the collapse of human biology itself. But the truly disturbing reality? This wasn't an accident. It was a calculated strategy. European royal families deliberately married first cousins, uncles to nieces, and even half-siblings to keep power centralized. The gene pool became so corrupted that madness ran through these bloodlines like poison. King George III of England didn't just have the occasional bad day. He suffered episodes where he was strapped into a straitjacket, foaming at the mouth, babbling incoherently for hours. Court physicians recorded his urine turning blue-purple, a telltale sign of porphyria, a genetic disease amplified through generations of inbreeding. The royal disease hemophilia spread through Queen Victoria's descendants across Europe like a curse. Her son Leopold would bleed for days from minor cuts. Her grandson Alexei, the Russian Tsarevich, screamed in agony as internal bleeding caused his joints to swell to grotesque proportions, leaving him bedridden for months. This single genetic mutation, amplified through royal intermarriage, helped to stabilize the Russian monarchy and arguably contributed to the conditions for revolution. But the gene preservation conspiracy ran deeper than anyone realized. Secret royal archives unsealed in 2000 revealed something historians had long suspected but couldn't prove: a systematic program of replacement and substitution for malformed royal births. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, when a royal child was born with severe deformities, palace physicians would immediately procure a replacement from among the nobility, peasantry, or even orphanages. The original child would be smothered, poisoned, or simply abandoned to die of exposure, while the healthy substitute was presented as the royal heir. The Diary of Lady Charlotte Finch, royal governess during the reign of George III, contained coded entries about Angel's return, followed by the introduction of Heaven's gift within the same day. Historians now believe these were euphemisms for the disposal of a malformed royal infant and the introduction of a replacement. At least 7 of Europe's monarchs between 1750 and 1900 may have been substitutions, not actual royal blood at all. The conspiracy extended beyond the nursery. Royal courts maintained networks of body doubles and stand-ins to conceal periods of insanity, disease, or deformity. When Ludwig II of Bavaria's mental state deteriorated to the point where he ate nothing but swan meat and insisted on dining with imaginary historical figures, his ministers deployed a carefully selected double for public appearances, while the real king remained hidden in Neuschwanstein Castle. Perhaps the most disturbing royal deception involved the Russian imperial family. While the official history records the Romanovs' execution in 1918, declassified Soviet archives suggest a far more complex scenario. DNA testing of the remains found in Ekaterinburg showed genetic inconsistencies that experts struggled to explain. Some historians now believe that Alexei and one sister, possibly Maria or Anastasia, were already dead before the revolution, victims of hemophilia and medical experimentation replaced by doubles to maintain the appearance of a complete imperial family. The preservation of royal bloodlines led to practices that crossed into horrifying territory. Court physicians to Europe's noble houses pioneered blood transfusion techniques centuries before they became medically accepted. In 1667, Jean-Baptiste Denis performed the first documented human blood transfusion on a feverish 15-year-old boy, allegedly the illegitimate son of a French nobleman, using lamb's blood. The boy died agonizingly, but the experiments continued in secret. Royal medical archives from the early 19th century contain accounts of rejuvenation treatments for aging monarchs that involve draining blood from young peasant children directly into the veins of the sovereign. These children, often obtained from orphanages or purchased from destitute families, rarely survived the procedures. The practice continued in secret until the 1860s, when modern medical understanding made the futility of such treatments clear. The most nightmarish revelation came from the private papers of Sir William Gull, physician to Queen Victoria. His coded journal, deciphered only in the 1990s, described a series of royal humorous treatments for Prince Albert Victor, grandson of the Queen and once heir to the British throne. The prince suffered from what Gull described as moral insanity and degeneration of the brain tissue, likely the result of generations of inbreeding. The treatment? Young women, typically between 16 and 25, were brought to private royal medical chambers where their pituitary glands were surgically harvested while they were conscious. These glands were then processed into elixirs administered to the prince. Gull recorded at least 17 such procedures between 1887 and 1890. None of the women survived. This practice connects disturbingly to the Jack the Ripper killings that terrorized London during precisely this period. The surgical precision, the removal of specific organs, the timing. Many modern researchers believe the Ripper killings were actually royal harvesting operations that went wrong or were discovered. The victims weren't random. They were selected for specific physical characteristics believed to indicate strong vital essences. The conspiracy of silence surrounding royal medical horrors extended worldwide. When Emperor Kome of Japan began showing signs of English disease, hemophilia, his physicians consulted secretly with European royal doctors. The treatments they adopted, including the consumption of virgin blood believed to contain untainted life force, came directly from European royal medical practice. But perhaps the most profound conspiracy was the systematic way these histories were erased. Royal archives across Europe show evidence of coordinated document destruction in the early 20th century. Entire sections of medical records, birth registries, and correspondence vanished. The remaining documents were heavily edited with references to deformities, insanity, and treatment systematically removed. After World War I, when monarchies fell across Europe, royal families entered into formal agreements with nascent democratic governments to suppress medical records in exchange for peaceful transitions of power. The British National Archives contain a sealed section scheduled to remain closed until 2070, more than 150 years after the events they document. Modern DNA analysis of royal remains has begun to reveal the true extent of genetic collapse. When scientists tested the DNA of Habsburg royal mummies in 2019, they found genetic damage so severe that modern medical literature has no comparative examples. The inbreeding coefficient, a measure where anything above 6% is considered dangerous, reached 25 to 30% in some individuals, higher than would occur from parent-child or brother-sister reproduction. The consequences of these royal genetics experiments continue to affect politics today. Secret genetic testing of Europe's remaining royal families in the 1980s revealed that hemophilia, porphyria, and several rare metabolic disorders remain in these bloodlines, though carefully concealed through selective marriage and, in at least 3 documented cases, surrogate pregnancies disguised as natural royal births. The gleaming crowns, the waving monarchs, the fairy tale weddings all serve as elaborate distractions from centuries of biological horror. Next time you see a royal portrait, look closely at the enlarged jaw, the distant gaze, the pallid complexion. These aren't just stylistic choices by the artist. They're clues to the genetic catastrophe hidden beneath the ermine robes, a horror story written in blood and deliberately erased from the history you were taught in school.